Hello, my name's Tony Robinson and I'm a technical sales engineer at Motion Control Products. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Kinco Servo Drives and how to basically set them up out of the box so that you can check to make sure the cabling's okay and they are basically configured for a basic operation. So you've got your servo drive and your motor and your cable set, and now you want to make sure that it works correctly before you put it into your application, just to ensure that you've wired it correctly and it's actually working as supplied. Okay, so let's start by looking at the product and the pinout. So this is the product. This is an FD423 Kinco Servo Drive with an SMC60 motor. But they're all basically the same. They all function in exactly the same way and basically have the same configuration and pinouts. So if we quickly look at the product, here we have the drive. The drive consists of logic supply. In this case, it's 220 volt logic. Some of the others are 24 volt, but this one is 220 volt AC. Your HV supply will either be single or three phase. You've got your motor phases here. Okay, you've got your feedback here, your user I/O, your RS232 communications port if you're going to use the Kinco Servo tool, which I would recommend for more complicated applications. It makes life a lot easier. And on the top, which you can't see, you've got two RJ45 ports for your field bus communications if being used. So that's the product. Okay. So let's have a look at the basic modes of operation and the buttons. Okay, so we look at the buttons. When we open the flip window, we can see a digital display. The digital display will display the parameter that we're looking at, or a certain value, depending on for instance, speed, for instance, if we set that. We've got a mode button, we've got a set button and an up and down arrow key. Now, every single parameter in the product can be configured from here. Obviously, there are a lot of parameters, and I wouldn't recommend setting the more complicated processes using the push buttons, but it could be done. But for simple operation, something like an analog velocity mode or a pulse train following mode, then you could just basically set it up straight from the box without having to use a software tool at all. So let's have a look at the mode. We've got our buttons here. So how do we actually configure this? So we use what's called the easy software configuration. Now the easy software configuration goes through a number of steps. Those steps allow us to configure the operation of the product as we want it to be. Okay. Now the first step is to configure the motor type. So if we press go into easy and press set, we get to EO1, and EO1 is the motor type. Okay, that's the first thing we have to check to make sure that everything's operational correctly. So if we go into EO1, we'll see a number, and it says 3142 in this particular case. Now, on the side of every motor, there will be a number, and that number will correspond to the number that's in EO1. If it doesn't correspond with that number, then it's not set up correctly and it will not operate correctly. And if it isn't set up correctly, then you will have to reset the drive and start the process again. So that's EO1, so we'll come out of there and we'll go to EO2. EO2 is the command type. I'll talk about the command type in a bit more detail in a second, but the command type basically is how we're going to operate it in a velocity mode, in a pulse train mode, in a field bus communications mode. EO3 is our gear factor numerator. EO4 is our gear factor denominator. EO5 is our analog speed reference. EO6 will be our limits, if we've got any fitted. EO7 is homing mode. And EO0 is save or initiate. Okay. Now, once you've gone through the process and you've checked all those values to be correct for what you're doing, then you have to save it. If you don't save it, then that configuration will be lost, so you will save it. And at the bottom of the screen there, you can see the different saving modes. One is a basic save, two, save and reboot, and so on and so forth. Now, that's configured the product. Once you've done that, we can go back to our main screen, our 00, by holding the mode button and going back to the start. That's got us to a point where we are ready to function. But let's quickly look at the command types again, just to make sure we understand what they are. So the command types are set in EAO2, as we said. Now in EAO2, those command types can be either 0, 1 and 2 for a pulse train mode. There's more details on the screen as to which pulse train mode is used for which type of operation. 6 and 7 is analog velocity mode, using either analog input 1 or analog input 2. Mode 8 is field bus communication, so if you're using something like Profinet or EtherCAT or CANopen, then you would set it to mode 8. And mode 9 is position table mode. Now inside the product there is a 31 lookup position table, and that is used with the digital I/O to run to different positions and at different velocities. Now if you're going to use that mode, then you would be best setting that up with the with the Servo Plus tool, which I'll talk about on another time. Okay, so that's mode 9. So now we've got our product configured to be basically operational. We need to just test it and make sure that it's working with the motor. So in order to do that, we need to go to F006. And this is called basically jog mode. So F006 will take us into jog mode. So we basically go into that screen. And you'll start at D6.40. Now, as a safety factor, you have to go through a simple process in order to get into the auto jog mode, okay? So you start off at D6.40 and you go down to D15. Once at D15, you press set, and then you go up to D25, and you press set, and jog appears on the screen. Now the two buttons, the up and down buttons, are now jog buttons, and you can jog at the speed of velocity you've set, backwards and forwards. This checks your cabling out, your encoder out, and basically your physical operation of the motor. If you leave it in that mode for any length of time, say a minute or two, it will just basically revert to the basic 0000 screen. But to come back out of it, we basically press the mode button and hold it until we get the 0000 screen again. Now, that's proved out the product, and we've now got an operational system. The only other thing that you might want to do is to auto-tune the system to your mechanical load. Now, if you're going to do that, then obviously it will depend on your mechanical load that you have. For instance, if you've got any form of elasticity in your load, a belt drive or something like that, the auto-tune may not work, and then you'll be forced to go down the manual tuning route. This can be handled from the buttons on the front. There is a process in the manual for that, but I would again recommend using the Kinco Servo tool for that type of operation if you're going to do it. So let's look at the auto-tune process. If we go to the tune screen and go to tune 03 and press set and set again, so the first button is flashing, first digit is flashing, and set that to 1 and press set, then the motor will oscillate through a number of degrees, plus and minus, and alter the inertia of the system and monitor the performance to see how it works. It will alter the current applied to the motor and modify the values to ensure that they worked correctly. Now, it is limited in what it can actually do. Okay, you are limited in a certain number of degrees that you can move. Up to about half a rev is the maximum you can move. But it does give you a good indication of where you should be within your system for for tuning. And it is a very good first step for tuning. Anyway, that covers the basic operation of the product. I hope you found that useful. If you did, then I thank you for your time. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.